Tell us about what we're talking about tonight.
So this is the assassination attempt of President Ronald Reagan. Happened 42 years ago today, 1981. And he had just given a speech in our nation's capital. And he was walking outside. And it's interesting because this Washington Hilton had made this entrance for presidential speeches. If you see that kind of brick area, that's a walkway where you can walk inside that brick area to go and speak. So it's pretty well protected. And that's where Reagan was going to give a speech to, I think, union workers.
Yeah.
And Reaganomics.
Yep.
And he had just finished giving the speech. So he was leaving and coming out. And it was like 2:27, like you had said.
It was 2:27.
And he waves to some people, and over where the plaque is at is where the gunman was standing. Hinckley was standing.
Yeah, so the picture that's showing right now, this is the picture, one of the pictures that I took while we were there. We were in D.C. a couple weeks ago, and so we went up there. It was really cold, and this Washington Hilton is still used, looks almost exactly like it did 42 years ago. So there's the plaque right there. You can see right there on our screen. And so Jen's talking over there in the better light. I'm over here behind the camera taking the pictures. And so that's I was standing right where it happened.
And so you get Hinckley, who fires 6 rounds in succession. And he has a revolver, so you can only fire 6 rounds.
Yep.
And the first shot actually hits the press secretary, Brady. And we'll talk more about that because you get the Brady bill that will come out of this. He hits him in the head. Brady goes forward. It will impact Brady for the rest of his life. He will be in a wheelchair. The second shot hits Tom Delaney. He's a police officer.
Police officer. Okay.
And as he hits him in the back, he yells, "I'm hit." So it's kind of the events too that but he falls forward, and now you have a clear path to the president.
Yeah.
So basically, Hinckley's taken out the 2 people that kind of were in the path of President Reagan. The fourth one is going to hit the other Secret Service agent. That's Tim McCarthy.
Yep.
And he's going to hit him in the chest. So he does his job. So what happens is the 2 people go down. Brady is hit. He goes down. The police officer hit in the back. He says, "I'm hit." I go down. The fourth shot goes over their heads, but Parr is pushing the president into the limo. Delaney turns towards the gunfire and spreads out his arms, just like a Secret Service agent is supposed to do.
He makes himself a bigger target.
And he gets hit right in the chest. And then the 5th shot hits the limo window, but it's the 6th shot that gets the president. It's the 6th shot that ricochets off the parking lot, hits the back of the limo, and because the limo is bulletproof,
it actually ricocheted back.
Ricochets into the armpit
I didn't realize that.
Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, and if I remember right, and the thing with our video, there's a ton of video. You guys can find a ton of videos on the Reagan shooting. You can find a ton of journalists that have done it over the years, recently, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and they do some very in-depth, they actually drive the route and film on the whole thing. So we actually use those as a little bit of research on our side. There's some really good ones, but one of the things I think I remember him talking about is they didn't realize he was hit right
They didn't realize he was hit because it's a ricocheted bullet that's getting him in like the back left armpit. So I'm doing my right, the left armpit. His injuries were not noticed at first.
And I actually enjoyed learning the call sign or the Secret Service call sign that was rawhide.
Back to the White House. Back to the White House. Rawhide is okay.
Rawhide for the president, and they called the White House the Crown.
Yeah.
So they get in the limo. The Secret Service shoves his hands on the president to look for anything. He doesn't see any blood because it's in his back left armpit. And he goes, "Okay, let's head towards the Crown." So that's what you hear on the radio.
We're going to Crown.
But then President Reagan starts to cough up blood.
Well, and the other funny thing is, too, the people on the radio are so worked up that some people forget to use the call signs.
Yes.
About that. Some people say, "Are you going to the White House?" Like he's like, "Going to the Crown."
You want to go to the hospital or back to the White House? We're going to Crown.
Yes.
And then they pick the alternate location once he figures out that
So
he's been shot.
When he starts to cough up blood, the Secret Service agent realizes right away that there is blood in his lungs, and he has to make a call.
Roger, we want to go to the emergency room of George Washington. That's the Roger. Go to George Washington fast.
Yeah.
And you have to say it over the radio.
Yeah.
So here he is telling everybody who can have access to a radio that Rawhide is going to George Washington.
Yeah,
and that's what
he says, like, rawhide is hit, or rawhide
Yeah.
is going to George Washington.
Rawhide is going to George Washington. And so that's the name of the hospital, George Washington University Hospital. So he's using the exact name. And he had to really weigh national security.
Go to George Washington fast.
Roger. Sergeant Sparrow, question.
Mark County. Mark County. County Park, George Washington. Get an ambulance. Get the stretcher.
The president will walk himself into the emergency room.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
So he does make a good show. And then as soon as he gets laid down on the gurney and they realize the seriousness of this, they don't put him under until Nancy Reagan gets there.
Oh my gosh.
And says something to him. And he says, I forgot to duck. That's what he told. I'm sorry,
gosh.
honey. I forgot to duck.
Yeah. And so if you see on the screen here, if you're watching the live stream, you can see this is us at the emergency room. This is us at the Washington Hospital. So this is across the street. And then up here, Ronald Reagan Institute of Emergency
So
Medicine.
he goes into he walks himself into the emergency room.
Yeah,
there.
so they named it after him. I don't know when they did that, but it was neat. Again, just being right there, like the George Washington University Hospital.
So Nancy comes in. He tells her, I forgot to duck, which I think is really funny. But one of the things I really love about Reagan, he keeps his morale up, and he keeps people around him morale up. So before he goes in for surgery, and before they put him under, he looks around at all the medical staff and the surgeon, and he says, I hope you're all Republicans.
Yeah, I know. You love that story.
I love that story. And because the head surgeon, who's actually a Democrat, says, Mr. President, we're all Republicans today.
Yeah.
I love that a Democrat would say that to him to put his mind at ease.
And it's so... I love it because it's so stereotypical of Reagan, too. That's what he was known for. We were doing our research on Reagan videos, and they talked about all the time, like how he would crack jokes during his speech.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, distinguished members of the Congress, honored guests, and fellow citizens. Today marks my first State of the Union address to you, a constitutional duty as old as our republic itself. President Washington began this tradition in 1790 after reminding the nation that the destiny of self-government and the preservation of the sacred fire of liberty is finally staked on the experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people. For our friends in the press who place a high premium on accuracy, let me say, I did not actually hear George Washington say that.
Unlike a lot of his predecessors before him.
Yes.
And so even in that time, right, he's getting ready to go under for surgery. He's cracking jokes. So it just really encapsulates him in his persona right then and there.
Yes. And so he will go under surgery. They will find the bullet. They will patch him up. We read that the Oscars were supposed to air that night, so they delay the Oscars for one night because the president had actually recorded a message for the Oscars.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure that all of you here and most of you watching tonight understand why we delayed this program for 24 hours. Because of the incredible events of yesterday, that old adage, the show must go on, seemed relatively unimportant. The Academy, ABC Television, and all of us connected with the show felt because of the uncertain outcome, as of this time yesterday, it would have been inappropriate to stage a celebration. But the news today is very good, as you know. The president is in excellent condition at last reports. He's been conducting business. And he happens to be in very good spirits. After all, you must remember this is a man who yesterday, while he was in the hospital unable to speak, wrote on a sheet of paper, all things considered, I'd rather be in Philadelphia. So tonight the show does go on. Now, 2 weeks ago, President Reagan videotaped an opening greeting for this occasion. We were in contact with the White House about 2 hours ago, and it was the president's express wishes that we use that introduction. And I might add that you might like to know that he also asked for a television set in his room so he could view this program tonight. I was, Actually, the president was in such good form today, I was very tempted to call him and ask him if he had any more of those one-liners that I could use. So it is especially pleasing tonight, ladies and gentlemen, to be able to say, here is the President of the United States.
Good evening to my fellow Americans eagerly awaiting the presentation of the 53rd Annual Academy Awards. It's surely no state secret that Nancy and I share your interest in the results of this year's balloting. We're not alone. The miracle of American technology links us with millions of moviegoers around the world. It's the motion picture that shows us all not only how we look and sound, but more important, how we feel. When it achieves its most noble intent, film reveals that people everywhere share common dreams and emotions. Tonight, I applaud all who create, make, distribute, exhibit, and attend movies. I salute the Academy for the influence its work has on the world's most enduring art form. Film is forever. I've been trapped in some film forever myself. And as a former member of the Academy, I ask you now to join Nancy and me in enjoying this year's ceremonies.
The one thing that was scheduled that didn't get canceled was the NCAA basketball championship was playing that night.
That same night.
Oh, wow. And they didn't delay that, but they did have a moment of silence for the president.
Wow.
He's only there for 11 days. And he, again, this is an interesting time in the country too, because things are happening fast, right? This assassination attempt, president is shot, president's going in for surgery. So people are like, who's in charge? George Bush is hearing about this in the air. He's on Air Force 2. So he's hearing about this in the air. And this is when you get the Speaker of House who makes that statement, I'm in control.
And there are absolutely no alert measures that are necessary at this time or contemplated. Now, if you have some questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Who's making the decisions?
Constitutionally, gentlemen, you have the President, the Vice President, and the Secretary of State in that order. And should the President decide he wants to transfer the helm to the Vice President, he will do so.
Who makes that decision?
As of now, I am in control here in the White House, pending return of the Vice President, and in close touch with him. If something came up, I would check with him, of course.
And he'll say, I'm in control. And people go, what? That's not how it works.
Speaker of the House is third in line.
So he says, I'm in control.
Yeah.
And so
That's too funny.
Bush is like in the air. He's like, what? I still exist.
Like, hello.
So that happens. But another thing that's happening in 81 at the time is news coverage.
Yeah, it was.
So this recording.
The early end of that CNN type era.
Yes. Yeah, this is right. CNN's first year. And so NBC was there, ABC was there. That's where you're getting the very good angle of everything that's happening. And CNN starts to play that over and over again. And CNN runs it for a full 24 hours with updates as they go. And some of the things they get wrong is they get wrong that Brady was killed, and it takes a while before they realize that Brady was not killed. So that's one of the first things they do report. But what happens is it really cements CNN as being a place to go for very to date.
Yeah,
and
just kind of
minute by
24-hour news.
Yes, if you want to go for good coverage, actual up-to-date coverage,
yeah,
the CNN was the place to go. Like I said, they've only been around for a year, but doing this,
I'm sure they were like the place because all the other typical networks would take breaks. They would go to their other programming and this, that, and the other. And this event happens. It was laid their foundation of, yes, this is what we do.
Now, when we talk about Hinckley, the shooter, a lot of people, John Hinckley Jr., who is the one who fires his gun at the president and eventually will kill Brady. He says he does it to get the attention of Jodie Foster. He had seen Jodie Foster in Taxi Driver and he was very enamored with her. And so he thought if he did this, he could bring attention to himself. Jodie Foster in return has only ever spoken about this 4 times.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting. And when you said that to me, I don't blame that. I don't blame her.
Because I don't want to jeopidize the prosecution.
Without getting specific, was he threatening, analyst? What was he like?
I'm not allowed to say. I believe that it's, that the letters were assumed to have been, love type letters.
When did you first realize the connection between the Hinckley and the letters and the Hinckley who shot the president?
Well, How many Hinckleys do you know?
Yeah, she doesn't want to give attention to him.
Yeah.
She doesn't want him to get what he wanted from her. So she spoke about it immediately after. She did an op-ed and wrote about it, and she spoke about it 2 other times in interviews. She's asked about it, and she commented on it. She will go out of her way to cancel interviews or walk out of interviews if they ask her about this, and she has told them that she's not going to speak on it.
Yeah.
To the point, like, she doesn't want to give it power.
Sure.
She doesn't want to give Hinckley power.
Well, I can understand that.
That's
So what, for obviously Hinckley was captured. I'll be perfectly honest. I don't actually know what ended up happening to him. I know he was convicted, pled insanity.
Planned insanity, which is, of course he's insane. Yeah. I want to be like, it's kind of obvious you're insane. But because no one, I think, died. So I think at the time no one was killed.
Right when it happened.
So
even though Brady passed away later.
Much later.
Okay.
Even though nobody was killed, he could plead insanity. He was institutionalized. He was just recently released.
Oh, really?
And it's because the president is dead.
Yeah.
Now Reagan is dead, and Brady. So and I think he's very limited in where he can go, and he's very watched and monitored. But yes,
I'm surprised. I don't think I even realized that.
I know. It's interesting. But yeah, James Brady will never recover from this. He's disabled. He will maintain press secretary for the rest of the year, but it's more of a positional title.
Sure.
Because he will be in a wheelchair, and it will impact his speech. And then he passes away in August of 2014. Yeah. And like I said, the medical examiner will rule it a homicide because he will succumb to the injuries that he received from that gunshot wound to the head. Tim McCarthy is still alive. The Secret Service agent who got shot in the chest has had 3 children afterwards. And the police officer, Tom Delaney, is also still alive, who was shot in the back. One thing that I thought was interesting is the president's approval rating goes up after this.
Yeah, that's not super surprising. People rally around a horrible event like that. It doesn't matter if you disagree with Reaganomics at the time or not, we're going to rally around something that's obviously, hey, you can't be shooting the president.
Yeah, and I think people, again, Reagan, he's such a good communicator. Yeah. And so he's so good with people and putting them at ease and building morale that I think people saw just the way he handled the whole thing. I think when he comes out of surgery, he asks, does anyone know what the shooter's beef was? He was very good off the cuff. He delivers a line well. I mean, he's an actor, right? So when you think about it, he was very good at giving speeches. Yeah. He was very good at making the country feel at ease. I remember when the Challenger disaster happens and he speaks to America.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd planned to speak to you tonight to report on the State of the Union. The events of earlier today have led me to change those plans. Today is a day for mourning and remembering. Nancy and I are pained to the core by the tragedy of the shuttle Challenger. We know we share this pain with all of the people of our country. This is truly a national loss.
He was just one of those great deliverers of an orator, basically. Another thing that I thought was interesting is the Dow Jones dips the next day, but it pops right back up after he comes out of surgery.
Oh, interesting.
So
just a little market uncertainty.
And I don't think there's been an assassination attempt on the president since him.
Not that I am aware of.
Yeah, not that the public is aware of, but there hasn't been something that was so close and the president actually got bodily harmed from. Yeah. So it was it was a neat story to do.
But it's super fun, and we made the extra effort tonight to come on a little bit later and do this on the anniversary, even though we haven't made the video. So I know even less than I normally would, because normally I do all my learning when I'm editing those videos. To those listening, thank you for listening to the Talk with History podcast. And please reach out to us at our website, talkwithhistory.com. More importantly, if you know someone else that might enjoy this podcast or this video, please share it with them, and especially if you think today's topic would interest them. Shoot them a text, tell them to look us up. We rely on you, our community, to grow, and we appreciate you all every day. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.